Hi friends, welcome to the today's session. Today we are going to understand one of the important aspect as part of security, that is understanding the DAD triad. See, still now we had understand there is a CIA triad which is essential. Any person who is into the domain of cybersecurity, he must understand CIA triad for the better implementation of the security controls. But it is, if any person who is in the domain is trying to build a policy or controls, he must understand something beyond CIA triad, which is nothing but the DAD triad. So basically, DAD represents, it is nothing but the disclosure, alteration, and destruction. And people also should understand the risk of overprotection. See, always we tend to have better security, but at the end of the day, you should not able to compromise or make something very typical to do the usability of that certain component or existing mechanism. So what I mean is, the usability is also the considerable factor which we need to balance along with the security. And another important aspects is authenticity and non-repudiation. These are also the fundamental things which we need to understand. They basically emphasize, authenticity emphasize on the ensuring the trust factor, and the non-repudiation making the accountable. So for doing action, making someone accountable is the non-repudiation main ultimate goal. Beyond this thing, there is one more important thing which any security system without this thing is incomplete. That is nothing but the AAA services, which deals with the authentication, authorization, and accounting. So these are the fundamental things, building blocks, which everyone should understand in much detail beyond the CAA tribe. So before going in details of the DAD tribe, DAD is nothing but it is an opposite of CIA. So let me explain why I am making this statement. DAD is nothing but it is the representation of the failures in the CIA triad. Let me explain in a better way. Let's say if you are trying to have better implementation of the confidentiality, but somehow someone has able to bypass your security control with respect to confidentiality, leading to unauthorized access of data or resource, which is nothing but here the major impact in terms of data disclosure. So the failure in the achieving of confidentiality, which is represented through disclosure. And another mechanism where DAD try talks about is the alteration. So it shows that there is some control which is unable to achieve the integrity which impacted the data modification. And the third one is data destruction. So critical resource or data has become lost, which impacted on the availability. Denial of service, which is one type of attack which is lead to represent the destruction. So basically, that triad is the representation of the security failures when we compare against the CIA triad. If you see what is the problems of having overprotection, means you take any system, if you have excess security can create some problems, because see, if you taking too much of overprotection, it may create problems in terms of usability and other aspects. If you see, if you are trying to build up the confidentiality or integrity aspect into the system or the controls which you are trying to implement, or trying to focus much on confidentiality and integrity, means you are trying to limitize the availability. Let's say if other persons who are trying to much emphasize on the availability, means they are indirectly showing the impact or lessening the confidentiality and integrity of aspects. So these concepts make clear that those three are different but they are interdependent. So having a right judgment and the balancing is the key in this security design. Without this thing, you create too much of security, also end up with some issues. And another important aspect which you need to understand is authenticity. So authenticity, the main focus is, it is to ensure that data which you are receiving is genuine and it came from a intended source, means claimed source. Means, let's say a person Anthony has sent some data to Krishna. The Krishna is expecting data from Anthony which is genuine, and he is expecting it must come from Anthony. So authenticity will give a belief to the Krishna that it has been rightfully came from the Anthony. So maybe you feel that data is genuine, means it feels, it it looks like we are focusing on the integrity. But the ultimate main goal of authenticity is verifying the origin, to make the receiver, at bringing the confidence in the receiver such that it has came from the rightful user from whom he is expecting to receive the data. That is what we call it as authenticity. So at the same time, to give a confidence that data is unchanged during the transit or storage. So giving a confidence and giving a belief that it has came from right user without any tampering during the communication or storing aspects. That is what we call it as authenticity. But as I mentioned that people always get confused with authenticity and integrity. They are tightly seems interrelated, but the main objective of authenticity is to ensure that data is genuine and it came from the client source. That is the main objective of the authenticity. Now, another important aspect in the security is non-repudiation. So, the non-repudiation, the ultimate goal is, if someone performs some action, later point of time he should not able to deny that action. I did some action, later point of time I should not able to say it is not me, it I am not the person who has did that thing. So this is what basically, I did something, later point of time I denied. That is what we call it as repudiation. To protect or to tackle the repudiation issue, we need the non-repudiation. So in the security, this is very important because a lot of data is exchanged between different interconnected systems, where one operation performed by the subject cannot be later point of time denied. For example, I forwarded a message to my friend, later point of time I should not say that no, I had not this thing. So that is what reputation and safeguarding or defending or getting overcome with this challenge, which we call it as non-reputation. But non-reputation seems to be a simple term, but typically it can be successfully achieved when we have the access controls. So you take any access control means it fundamentally builds on top five pillars, that is identification, authentication, authorization, auditing, and accounting. But of course, to achieve the non-reputation, we have other technical concepts which are supporting, which are back support to this non-reputation is digital certificates, session identifiers, logs, which can become an evidence later point of someone can't deny. And as I mentioned that access control mechanisms which are backed by these five pillars: identification, authentication, authorization, auditing, and accounting. So if you are negligent enough to focus on non-repetition, you never able to achieve accountability. See, in security, as I mentioned that if every action in the system is properly recordable and properly maintained, then only we can achieve the efficient security. That proper recording and proper linking who performed what action and later point of time he should not able to deny his actions. If that mechanism is successfully achieved, then it is a secure system. So if you are failed to support non-reputation, you are compromising the accountability. Indirectly it means making someone responsible for their actions will be lost, which will indirectly impact overall system security. So in this particular accountability and all the aspects along with this thing, we need to understand AAA services in security. Basically, when you see the AAA, it is the core security mechanisms in all environments. The reason is you can't achieve any security in the system. The moment security comes means limitizing access only to authorized people and defending or protecting the resources from unauthorized subjects. So this can be effectively achieved when you have to play services, and this is the core security mechanisms in any environment if you need the security. Basically, we call it AAA because it basically talks about authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authentication is verifying identity, authorization is granting access once he has been verified, and accounting, as I mentioned in the earlier, it is tracking their actions which they performing when accessing the system. So but people are trying to call triple means this thing, but they are inter supported with other two things which are identification and auditing. So identification and authentication are tightly interlinked. They are the claiming an identity. Before you are trying to go to authentication, you should claim your identity first. You can't achieve the accounting as part of AAA if you don't have the proper auditing. Means there is no logging or monitoring activities. You can't achieve this thing. So these are the fundamental pillars which are essential as part of the security. Thank you. In the next session, we will see deep dive in these five core principles which are supporting AAA. So identification, authentication, authorization, auditing, and accountability. How they are important and interrelated, we will see in the next session. Thank you.